All right, welcome everybody to day two of and probably this is the winter winter meetings recap as the Rule 5 draft took place today. We'll talk about that and among a couple of other things today. So, Uper and John will be in tomorrow in case something happens. But so 3 shows this week. Why? Because there actually is a lot of baseball content to be had outside of the Tigers as well. So joining me this evening is two people that I I like to call my asshole, and Mark Rush. Like even like he's an asshole, but he's my asshole. That's what I look at
Fair enough.
Mark
Fair
Brother
enough.
Rush. Fair enough. And Brandon Day, the editor in chief over at BlessYouBoys.com.
How's it going?
So, Mark, how you like that introduction there?
Listen, I think you're going to have to fight Sandy Garage for that particular title, but
Yeah.
happy to be
He's
here.
only an asshole about baseball, so
Yeah, that's true.
otherwise, just a lovable ball of fluff for the most part. So
A giant ball of fluff now.
try to adjust myself here for you guys.
But
All right.
I'm just happy to be doing this with you boys. We've been doing it for so very long now. I actually have a few on my list from like 5 or 6 years ago on my phone of players I wanted us to acquire, which later in the show we could maybe delve into some of those and probably realize how stupid I really am. So, but I'm just excited to be here.
There's what's funny is that for people who are brand new to the show or just came over via Woodward, Tigers just started listening to us this year or watching us this year, if you will, because we're down we started with no YouTube channel. So this is we had to kind of hodgepodge together the audio and video elements, which have gotten increasingly better. So it's kind of strange to think now in these times. I remember one of the first times we did the show together was at Mark's house, and I had all this gear, and it's been a long time. But yeah, this is the 6th winter meeting podcast we've done as a collective. So
we had a damn good time that time, didn't we?
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
that was fun. We had Lynn Henning was out for that one. We had a good meal beforehand, and it went on a long time, as I recall.
We barbecued it. We did it in the garage. Then we did the pod at the table.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then Max joined us when he was on the beat, and then there was who was it? The Jordan. No, Jordan. But there was another gentleman from the Freep or from the.
We had Sip here. Yeah, Sip was here for that one. Yeah,
I just talked to Sip the other day. Sip's a civilian now, and he loves being a civilian.
Oh yeah, he's doing some good work there. So wait, the Tigers just announced a trade with the Braves.
Just traded Joe
Breaking
Jimenez.
news. What?
Are you kidding me?
Man, see, I knew it.
Oh, guys, well, here we go. I gotta go write this. No, I'm kidding. We'll survive without it.
What did we do?
The Tigers trade.
Justin Henry Malloy.
Yep, and go ahead and say the last name.
Jake Higginbotham from the Atlanta Braves for Joe Jimenez and cash considerations. So Justin Henry Malloy is a familiar name to me.
Thank you, Harrison. No, by the way, thank you, Harrison Garrett, for dropping the news in there. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, so all right, so it's changed the course of the podcast completely. So this is actually a good thing. We have breaking news on the podcast. So
I'm glad because I was going to dress as the ghost of good Tiger teams past for Christmas.
What scares me?
We didn't have much to talk about.
What scares me about that deal is usually Chris is by far the most fluent out of us about prospects, although all of us are very good. But I'm not too familiar with either one of these human beings.
No, well, so Henry Malloy was a 2021 draft pick, first baseman, right-handed hitting first baseman.
He was their 29th. He was their 29th ranked prospect going in to this year, or the last time they did this list on Fangraphs.
All I can say is he walks a ton.
Yep. He walks. He's got looks like average, maybe slightly above average power.
Yeah, it's supposed to hit. Maybe not a ton, but a solid hitter.
He only had 33 plate appearances. Yeah, but he did walk a ton.
Yeah.
So
He
it looks
played in
like
Double-A.
and he's played the corner outfield. So that could be a right-handed hitting outfielder that they were looking for, right? I think he's listed as a first baseman, but so
Yeah, I mean, hasn't spent a lot of time. Hasn't spent a lot of time above A ball yet either. 62 games it looks like. Huh.
Yep.
That's not quite what I would have thought you would get for Joe Jimenez, but we'll have to look a good bit deeper into this, obviously.
Yeah, I'm the fact that we're not getting Tyler O'Neill for Joe Jimenez is making me process the answer. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm saying I got to do some homework on it.
Yeah, well, I think I don't know. I mean, people who follow you guys and read us, probably have some awareness of where Joe Jimenez is at after the year he had. But I mean, Joe Jimenez came out of this year looking like a borderline top 10 reliever in the game, potentially. So, you would have thought you'd get a lot. Of course, the other problem is that he's going to be a free agent. So we knew, if they didn't extend him, and maybe he wasn't open to that, which I wouldn't have minded them doing at this point. But yeah, then. It comes down to you've got to move him. And we haven't really seen that many top relievers get traded for huge hauls at the deadline as rentals the last couple of years. It just doesn't seem like you're getting as much for them. So, the fact that they traded him doesn't surprise me. But, yeah, we'll have to look a good bit deeper into these two guys to see if they did all right here or not. Obviously, we're going to have to trust Mr. Harris, I
was going to say, there's not a lot of video on Jake. I've spent some time trying to look for it. And
yeah. It looks like Henry Malloy played primarily third base and left field last year, so I don't know why he's listed as a first baseman. That may eventually be where he ends up, but
Fangraphs has him listed as a third baseman, so I don't know.
Higginbotham is a 26-year-old left-handed reliever with a 4.7 ERA last year, so I don't know. That might just be something that they like.
By the deal to be real. I mean, explain to me how a guy who costs $3 million, even though he's in his walk year, who was just lights out for 5 months of the season, for sure 4 months, that we basically got a walk-oriented bottom 20 Atlanta prospect outfielder and a left-hand reliever who isn't even in their top 30 prospects. I mean, explain to me how Joe Jimenez isn't worth more than that. I mean, they just paid Rafael Montero $9 million for a very similar profile for $10 million to Joe Jimenez.
I mean, look, Mark, look at all the red here. Look at all the red that the Tigers have here, or Jimenez has here. I mean, just with fastball spin, everything. Like, there's a big increase from even the year before, and I mean, we went back. You go ahead, Chris.
Well, I think the very first thing you said, Mark, is the key there. This is his walk year. It's 1 year of a reliever. It doesn't really matter how good of a reliever you are. It's still just 1 year of a reliever. Like,
I get it.
He's not going to close for the Braves.
Leverage relievers are super valuable now, and guys at the trade deadline. I mean, this is pretty. Yeah. Look, here's what I'll say to you.
Well, wait, I'm gonna wait a minute, because I'm gonna interrupt right there, because I mean, what we've got to do is know the two guys that they got for him, and we don't really. That's already come across. These are somewhat obscure guys, but we did just we just got Rob Metzler and Mark Connor in here to run the scouting department. They're going to make their own, decisions on this. Right. And while admittedly, my first reaction is not real positive here either. It's hard to come.
That's my word.
Yeah. Okay. That I can agree with for now. Yeah. But we're just going to have to dive deeper into it and see what's up.
I mean,
yeah, I'm the same way. I'm kind of just kind of a little bit stunned, more stunned than anything. I mean, I'm just, for what, again, maybe it's us overvaluating what Jimenez is, but I mean, again, at the same time, some of those numbers do pop out, but
Henry Malloy went to the AFL, hit 300 there with 16 walks, 1 homer, but 5 doubles and a triple. I think he's a guy who fits more the profile of what Scott Harris wants, right? It looks like he's a quality hitter who gets on base. maybe they protected Brendan White. We didn't really expect that coming. They've got a handful of relievers they like. Maybe this is just them trying to reshape the roster as best they can, without necessarily landing that stud for a 1-year reliever. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to see, but I kind of would have just liked to extend Joe at this point. I waited so long for Joe to finally tune it all together, and they finally got there.
I mean, and that's the other thing, though, with relievers. Relievers are so up and down.
Mhm.
I agree 100%.
Jimenez was not good for 4+ years.
Yeah.
So you got that good 3 months, the 1 year, the first year he was an all-star, and then he was awesome last year. I don't debate that. Although he's always run, lower FIPS than ERAs because he's always got a low left on base percentage and a high BABIP. It seems like. So I don't know if there's just something that they can't fix there with men on base.
I like Malloy's swing, by the way. We got Malloy's swing on the screen right now. Definitely digging it. I mean, I know it's in slow-mo, but
yeah, I feel like he needs more bat speed. Oh wait, it's slow-mo.
Not going to be able to hit 95 plus. I'm sorry, not with that.
I mean, like I said, though, Connor and Metzler, two pretty smart guys.
Oh,
So,
by the way, we have intel in our room. This is another new thing, Mark. We have people that on the audience. Baseball America had him 6 in their new rankings.
all right, there you go.
Okay.
Somebody's got better in
Atlanta's system, in their system, yeah. So
is Ponce doing the rankings? Who's doing Atlanta's rankings?
Let's see.
I want to say Jeff, or you know what? I think that's JJ Cooper's backyard, isn't it?
It could be.
Yeah, maybe.
They usually have somebody local do the rankings for each team.
Yeah.
So they got
All right. Well, like I said, we'll.
What I'm seeing is a guy who had a huge year and came on really strong late, especially. So.
But what I said though is, it's like when they took the kid today in the draft. I get the feeling that Connor and Metzler had seen that kid. And I didn't have a chance to look and see if either the Padres or the Rays, had an affiliate in his league. So, you got much different sets of eyes looking at things now. But at the same time, we've done this so many years together, and, I've made a podcast around the premise of process and profile. The one thing I got to give Scott Harris, he's got process and profile. Very dedicated to people that walk, and the 4 of us have been yelling and screaming that for 5 years.
Yeah.
So when they're starting, they jettisoned 20% of their roster just over the fact that he doesn't feel like they can walk. Maybe they know more than we do about some of these acquisitions, and I think maybe we need to learn to be a little more patient about seeing them play more before, just because they're not ranked as high as we might have hoped. That I'm not gonna try to piss on these guys before I get a chance to watch them.
Now I'm going to bring up Josh Rojas and his 21% O swing. And just say, I'm just saying, perfect utility man for Scott Harris, in my opinion. But anyway.
So, I mean, this I'm looking at the Baseball America scouting report, and they do have a little more info that we'd like to hear. So they say he has above average raw power. His strike zone discipline is what's going to drive him, though. And he said he only chased 18% of the time last year, while showing quick hands and good bat-to-ball skills.
That's Parker Meadows level.
Oh, yeah. So, by the way, Michael.
Parker Meadows, baby. Okay.
Yeah, well, here's Michael in our YouTube chat saying that Carlos of Baseball America did the. So that's good. Thank you.
That is good. Michael Mayer is a very good person to follow for these sorts of things.
Yeah,
Michael Mayer. Mike.
He's the mayor of this. He's the mayor of this chat.
Whoa!
Hey.
Hey-o.
So it looks like he's probably going to play left field. So,
actually, you know what, gentlemen? Does that put him among one of the top outfield prospects in the Tiger system?
Yeah, him and Parker Meadows.
Yeah.
And depending on when you want to put Colt Keith out there.
Yeah, but yeah. By the way, I do want to talk about that. I want to ask about the Baseball America's top 10 prospect list because I want to have a spiritual debate about it, if you will, among two. I know two. It came out today. Their best tools list and all that, and there's some debate. So and yeah, there's some debate about that. We'll talk about that a little bit later. There's a lot to discuss because we got so sidetracked with the trade. But breaking news, it doesn't happen very often on this podcast. That's in fact. Usually the content gods. Oh, actually, I take that back, Chris. The content gods are always good to us. So yes.
Typically, like during the year, it was like, oh, hold on, I got to mute this. I got to Gary Carpenter hit the grand slam. I got to go post that. No, this is interesting.
It's like Nick Castellanos interrupting tragic announcements.
By the way, Ellen Nelson in our YouTube chat said, we will like the new Rule 5 draft pick. I watched him since high school. He's a real deal.
I tell you what, I clipped together his AA debut, and I was like, this kid's a big leaguer. Like, it was one start, and I'm like, okay, like he's got a full arsenal of pitches. The fastball's only like low, mid-90s, but it really plays up in the zone because he's got like that, whatever it is, he's got that low release height, and it just kind of stays on plane.
Yeah, he really leans into it. He's really down the mound and low,
I'll throw a pitcher out that throws similar velocity that if he wasn't one of the most vexing pitchers we faced all year, just would shake our head. Wow, here it comes, baby.
Yeah, I know.
Joe Ryan. Joe Ryan throw.
That's a good comp. That's a good comp right there.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, and I saw a couple what I would view like is like plus short curves. I don't know how else to describe it from England. Like, some of them hung and he got hit, but it wasn't hard contact. And he had some. He struck out. The shortstop 3 times in this.
It's one of those curves that sort of works with his fastball because it really does. It has like a hump, but then it doesn't like dive all the way down the way you would think it would. It's sort of it looks sliderish really, but
yeah, it could be called a slider. I don't know.
Do you see how late the break is on this?
Yeah, I mean that's the key, right?
It's
But boy,
who are you saying? Marcelo Mayer?
No, Jordan Lawler.
Oh, okay. Jordan Lawler?
Yeah. And it's like, that's a big league arm, and you could see why the Rangers didn't protect him because he'd barely been to AA, and they're just kind of hoping that he's not going to be able to stick in the majors. And it's going to be tough for the Tigers to do that. But this is, it's a starter's arsenal. I don't know how the Tigers are going to work it out in mid-relief, maybe spot start here and there, but I'm pretty excited for him. We'll see what happens. You
kind of think like he and Roney and Tyler Alexander, assuming all of them reach the season intact. Yeah, would be some kind of a group of kind of mid reliever type dudes. Yeah, spot starters, swingman types all together maybe, which isn't real comforting, but but yeah, you got to keep the kid. If they like him for sure.
Look, here. It's hard for me to complain about the work that Harris has done, retooling, the bottom of his roster. It's been pretty good. And you can see he has a plan. He's got a philosophy. He's stayed true to it. And, it's hard to complain about it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there was a great article on The Athletic. I didn't catch who the author was about Mason Englert.
Yeah, it was Jamie Newberg.
And was like a heart-wrenching story about how he was actually the third child in the family, but the first 2 kids died in a car crash, and he he was 27 weeks when he was born, like 13 weeks early.
Jeez.
Hey, we got some. Sorry, we had a question in YouTube chat about Jimenez, but go ahead, continue, Chris. Sorry.
Oh no, it's one of those things where he looks like he's a good athlete, and then he's also a great story. That's it was well done piece. So thanks, Mark, for knowing who wrote that. I didn't pay attention.
He also wrote another piece about is the kid's name Mangler? What's the kid we drafted today?
Mason Englert.
Engler?
Englert.
Like John Englert, but with a T.
Yeah.
Englert.
Yeah.
Newberg wrote another piece about his performance in the last 5 weeks of the season. He was part of a combined no-hitter. He threw the first 7. and he threw another game right after that was pretty spectacular. And I think he only gave up 2 or 3 runs in his last 30 innings, struck out like 45. He was pretty spectacular the last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
He was in high A, promoted him to double A. So, they obviously saw some things. I see in the chat, Matt's asking us, he is giving us some high praise to Malloy, and he asked what we could say about Jimenez. And my answer of what you could say about Jimenez is go check his Savant page. He misses a lot of bats. He's struck out just a ridiculous amount of hitters the last, what would you say, like the last 20 weeks of the season. So
I mean, he really dialed in the vertical attack angle this year. They've been working on that since Fetter got with him, and just trying to tweak that last bit of ride out of the fastball, and they finally got it. And he was just missing bats left and right. I don't really know that his command actually got any better. He was just blowing everyone away. And the slider finally got a little bit tighter again.
Yeah, his slider is much tighter. And
it was a very small tolerance between the Joe Jimenez who, gives up too many home runs and, it can get wild at times, and the one who just had all the mojo going for him and was just blowing people away with authority. Didn't look like he even cared where he was throwing it as long as it was in the zone, because he was just going to dust you. So
I really thought that his control was better than it was.
His command was much better.
It was better, but it wasn't a radical difference in my opinion. It was the stuff,
Because I look at his stuff. Remember the start where he had 6 walks in Oakland? One of the worst appearances I've ever seen. It looked like a night and day. That guy, that Jimenez is long gone. Yeah. And I like the fact that he was able to, and Mark's talked about this, and Chris, you talked about this too, and I believe all of us have talked about his extension, because he's so tall, using his extension on his late, it gets so much late action on it. I think he figured it out. So
I think he's in the top 3% in baseball for extension. So Matt Manning is also quite far up the curve in extension, which is why we finally figured out when he's throwing 93 miles an hour, they're still not hitting it. So
with Jimenez, he's got those just tree trunk legs, and he's always been like an analytical darling, right? We always used to project it like, hey, he'd go to the Rays and they'd figure him out because
they'd steal it from us.
And for whatever reason, I think it started in Puerto Rico last year in the Winter League, where he was working on something and figured it out, and it continued on throughout the year. And if he pitches like he did last year, I mean, that's a big time weapon in the back end of the bullpen for the Braves. So I think it's a great pickup for them. They're obviously going all in. It seemed like this year that AJ Hinch was reluctant to use Jimenez in true like closing situations or in really high leverage situations
until the end.
He did the last 6 weeks though, Chris.
Yeah, he did, and Jimenez was just as good. So I think that's just AJ Hinch probably like easing him back into that role, and it seemed to work well.
To be really blunt about it, I thought that they would move Soto, and there was a really good chance that they would let Jimenez close because they like to use Lang in leverage. So it's God bless them.
So JP Jana here said, what excited about the move, but feels like AJ Hinch and Scott Harris keep saying they want to be a better team and win more, but this move seems more like a tear down rebuild than trying to improve.
Wait, guys, I do have to write something real quick, so you guys continue on.
All right, go for it. I in general, I don't have a problem trading relievers.
Me either.
Especially if you're going to get a position player for it, because the relievers just come. They're a handful who are good for multiple years at a time, but really, they're pretty volatile. Yeah, and especially when you got a reliever who's only left for 1 year on the deal. I don't hate it, but it's definitely not. They're not going for it this year. I mean, I don't think anybody thought that, right? This is just they're trying to reconfigure the roster to make it more balanced in a way that Scott Harris wants to build the team.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take too much out of this in particular at all. No, we all thought Joe Jimenez was going to get traded. You can take it from the fact that they're pretty clearly not going to try, to compete this year. And I can be as mad about that as I want, because from my point of view, this is probably a 75 win team if they just be healthy as they are. And if you added a couple bats to it, you might get lucky. And I would like to see them actually try to do something, because as we all know, the payroll next year is like $100 million, as it stands. And there isn't much of a free agent class next year the way, this year is. And you can't pick when you're going to be able to fill your needs. When those players arrive, I'll just quote Dave Dombrowski, like, you win with star players, and you have to have a couple. And they don't come up all the time,
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I would have liked to have seen them, try to do something, but I wouldn't go panicking yet either, because I do think you're probably going to see some at least substantial trade action go on here over the next 3 months, because most of the free agent deals have already been signed. There's still some players out there. Obviously Correa and Dansby are out there. Nimmo's still out there. Someone's going to take Conforto as like a hot bounce back candidate. There's still some things to go on like that. Rodon, obviously, but at a certain point, that's going to be all over with, and then it's going to be can they swing some trades to improve the roster? Because I mean, if they're just going to run this out as it is, pretty much, I don't blame anybody from just turning it off for the year again. I don't blame them at all.
I mean, we talked a little bit about on Twitter today, and I am always impressed with how people understand sarcasm on Twitter. It's, but
I can't blame them though. It's so hard out there. Yeah.
The Tigers have a decent amount of tradable assets, depending on how clever a dealer Harris is. You never know how good a guy is at making deals, and but look, I think Cody said this early this week, and it was spot on. They're going to trade Erod. They may trade him now. They may trade him at the deadline, but he's getting traded. Get ready, okay? He's got plenty of value, and he's opting out, barring, some type of injury. So, I don't think there's much.
He's going to opt out. And when we see what Matt Boyd and these other guys are paying for, what these guys are going for, Erod does look like a better value than some might have expected.
Taijuan Walker just got $72 million, dude. Erod's better than Taijuan Walker. So it's, you have relievers and you have starting pitching. Those are two things that are always of value making trades. And the question is, are they going to trade for prospects, or are they going to trade for guys on the cusp of, playing every day? I'll be very interested to see what the vision of this front office is, because, I think what you said is, there's not a great free agent class next year. If you trade Rodriguez, between him, Cabrera, and Scope, that's, $54 million coming off the payroll.
64 with Boyd. Yep.
Yeah, you're going to have a 64 maybe. So you're going to have about $135 million payroll by the time they get done spending money. So, you're going to have you got a lot of money to spend.
By the way, just as a breaking part here, and Harrison Garrett said it in the chat, and I just have the press release right now. I'm actually working on the article. He's the top prospect in the organization. And Brian Sikowski, by the way, friend of the show, Downriver for life, Brian Sikowski, said that he has the potential to be an everyday starting baseman. He loves the trade. So Brian,
that makes me feel better.
Yeah, look, if Brian Sikowski's written off on it, great. Because 99.9% of the time when there's trades, they'll say something like either nothing or they'll say something just now. So anyway,
compare it to the Michael Fulmer trade.
Thank you, Harrison, by the way, in the chat. By the way, we appreciate it.
Yeah,
they got Sawyer Gibson Long at the deadline last year for a couple months of Michael Fulmer, who was about as effective as Joe Jimenez last year. Not quite as good with the strikeouts, but I mean, this feels better than that. We'll see what happens. Obviously, you hope that Justin Henry Malloy can continue hitting for power and is a viable defensive player. But I don't know. It was funny. We came on to tonight. Basically, I was expecting to say so why didn't the Tigers do anything? Why don't we think they had any discussions? And immediately they waited for us to do this.
Yeah, I bet you anybody like Scott Harris goes, watch this Twitter.
Yeah.
Watch.
He's watching, Scott. We know you're watching right now. How's it going?
What? I mean,
good job.
This is worthy of this. Hold on.
You did it. You crazy son of a bitch. You did it.
But
There
no,
you go,
to
Scott.
Mark's point though, like I mean, we were talking about Erod, and suddenly that contract looks pretty spectacular compared to what else is out there. He's making what, $1 million more than Tyler Anderson, less than Jamison Tyon, less than Taiwan Walker. Some team that didn't land one of these starting pitchers is going to come calling for him, and it could be the Cardinals, could be the Blue Jays, could be who knows.
Now I don't know that we're going to get a whole lot for him, but
I disagree.
But they could
totally
shed him.
Disagree.
Well, that's fine. The other thing we were talking about is just how tradable the farm system is, because I used the same phrase the other day. Because when you have all these, we probably all have slightly different views. Like you got Colt Keith, you got Wilmer Flores, you got Jackson Jobe, and those are kind of your three top 100 guys. Maybe for me, I might put Kristen Santana in there. Parker Meadows made a huge move this year, but you've got that like middle group of guys that are all very tradable, and you've got a brand new, scouting director. You got a brand new VP of scouting, and you've got a brand new, president of baseball operations / GM right now, wearing both hats. Those guys are going to have obviously their own views about the Tigers farm system, and it's probably going to be very different than Al Avila's views of the farm system. So yeah, I mean, I think we should expect that they're probably going to retool some things and try to move some guys that they think might be overvalued, or that they're just not, they're just not buying in on. But whether or not that gets you, much of an offensive weapon to put into this lineup remains to be seen, or whether or not they're just going to be doing prospect for prospect deals for guys they like better. We're going to have to see. But yeah, I mean, the setup is for at least a few guys to get traded, I would have to assume. And, we've got 3 months to go here. The winter meetings might be over, but, the offseason really is just going to kick into high gear now as far as people trying to figure out what to do with a lot of the top free agents off the board.
No doubt about
you guys, why does everybody think it's over already? It's December 6th.
So
what's over?
That the Tigers are not going to sign anybody else. There's just this really weird looming sensation.
Look, this is as good as time as any to discuss it, and I think Brandon was just touching on it. I mean, we the four of us talk almost every day. We talk to Cody or Evan, or we talk to other people too. I mean, I had some thoughts about how to make them competitive coming, out of the season, and based upon what I've seen here in the last 3 weeks, that entire premise of acquiring more veteran players that were good to mix in with what they had and try to see where it took them. I pretty much, as of right now, I've abandoned that idea, because I don't think that's what Scott Harris, his vision of what he wants to do. I mean, they had payroll room. They probably had some assets. You could have gotten a lot better. But I personally think they're going to start trying to acquire as many younger players with service time and ability and see what happens. I don't think they're interested in being extremely competitive next year at all. I think they're more interested in trying to build a nucleus, a young nucleus of a team, and they're selling off anything that has a year left of service time, or is older, or was in their mind not a profile of the type of player that they want to build a team around. And now, let me say this though. Scott Harris just came from a team that kind of looked like a band of gypsies when he got there. And they won 100 and how many games did they win? 109?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
But I don't think that's the type of thing they're trying to do here. So, they took a lot of minor league free agents and 29-year-old guys that had never done anything, and somehow it came together for them. But I think
the thing too is that they were also, they were trying to get that payroll back under control after, kind of spending up sort of near where the Dodgers tend to get to, a few years ago. And that's why you see, everything you're saying about the way they approached it is correct, but we see them pursuing Judge. They were trying to clear that payroll and get it back under control for them to make some big things. I'm just saying.
The Giants in 2021 won 107 games,
107
dude.
games, yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and they also had like the greatest confluence of veterans suddenly being really good again in the same one. Like,
yeah, I don't know what they fed Brandon Crawford and
Crawford and Posey and Longoria, and Buster Posey is one of the great leaders of the last couple decades. So when he was playing well,
agree 100%. But
they told everyone to get more sleep. That's what Gabe Kapler did. Get more sleep. Eat your seaweed. Take your protein powder.
They optimized.
Put your helmet on.
They optimized a lot of players there, but I just don't. Yeah. I'm getting the vibe now. Yeah, they may pick up some, high return, low risk type of players as time goes on. But look, coming into the offseason, I've told you guys, and this is not a secret. I've tweeted it a few times. I wanted to sign Contreras. I wanted to do a weird trade to get DJ LeMahieu here, and I wanted to trade for Tyler O'Neill, and I wanted to put those three guys in the lineup with what they had, and let's see where we were going. Okay, but obviously that idea is just.
I just want to trade for Sean Murphy and just give us Ramon Laureano to throw in right field. That's what I want.
I've asked for.
I'll give him Colt
Laureano before.
I'll give him Colt Keith for that.
Hell, you will.
You can get Laureano literally for a pack of gum. Literally.
Well, yeah, Laureano is just a throw-in. Like, give me the lefty masher who has a big arm and unfortunately isn't the player he used to be. But maybe if you give him more of the Gabe Kapler mojo and, like I said, rest these guys up, give them more.
Let's answer this question: Who's getting Sean Murphy?
I think Cleveland is.
They seem the most interested. Yeah, for sure.
Because there's not as many places to dance anymore.
And Cleveland has a ton of really interesting young middle infielders because that's all they get out of the international market.
Cleveland's really good at what they do. Really good. They need a catcher really bad. If they get a catcher, they're going to be really, really good.
Yeah, if they can get a catcher who can hit, and there's only like 5 of them. Yeah, that's why. Yeah, I don't like them getting Sean Murphy. I want to get him ourselves.
Right.
Get on with things because Can I just say, well, we're skipping around a lot, which is what tends to happen. But you're not just going to play Jake Rogers throw him right into the bigs again after he's got 200 plate appearances since 2019. So I'm real curious what they're going to do about catcher now, because
Omar Narvaez.
Yeah, I mean that seems like the only realistic option if you're not going to trade for somebody. So yeah,
I think it's a good idea. It costs no money. He hits left-handed. He walks.
We'll see what it costs. We'll see what it costs when there's nobody else available.
Right, but he can catch 50 games. I'm sure. We've all discussed this and tweeted some form of it. I mean, Jakey needs to go get 125 at bats at Toledo. Don't you think so?
I would assume, yeah. Unless he just, it just comes into camp and is just looking freaking great. Yeah.
But don't you think that's look, he's not young, but catchers are, there's guys that are 65 years old that become good at, catching. Catchers develop so late.
By the way, props to John. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I say, why would you not want him to get back into playing, 20 or 30 games before he came back to the show? He hasn't played in a year and a half.
Yeah, I kind of thought he might play somewhere this winter just for the hell of it, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. Yeah.
By the way, producer John, who is not on the podcast this evening, is doing the Lord's work, putting up some YouTube clips here, clips on Twitter, and he's
that Shed Long.
That's Kyle Lewis.
Oh yeah, Kyle Lewis.
Yeah, who wanted Kyle Lewis?
The swing. He said that the swing to Justin's swing is very similar to Kyle Lewis. So there you go. What are you gonna say, Chris?
I just Kyle Lewis.
Yeah, where did Kyle Lewis go? In Arizona?
Yeah. They've got a lot of outfielders in Arizona these days. It's packed out there.
Good ones.
Go get me Dalton Varsho.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a catcher that can hit.
But that's another reason why, just to keep bringing this up as a, not even a big move, but that's another reason why I just figure Rojas is probably easily available and kind of makes sense as a fairly toolsy utility player that you probably don't want at third base full time. You probably don't want him in right field full time, but part time he can do all those things. He can steal bases. He's got some pop, controls the strike zone well. He'd make a lot of sense, especially if they actually do want to see a bunch of Kreidler, which I don't know, maybe they do. I kind of want to see some Kreidler, but not lots.
I got news for you. If Colt Keith can not be a disaster defensively at third base, you're going to see him sooner than later.
Yeah, let's just let him, play at Double-A for a minute. We'll see, but yeah, I think it's going to be quick too. But I don't know about next year. So
yeah, if he adapts quickly to Double-A, I think he might be up here pretty quickly.
I think you'll see Parker next year, but yeah.
So again, we've kind of lost it again. So we're gonna keep talking going about the trade. There was a lot of other things to get to, but I totally 100% going out the window.
The board
emergency pod. This is an emergency pod that actually worked out.
You're the show boss, Castillo. What's going on here?
See what?
You're the show boss. You trying to wrangle your friends all?
Oh no! You guys continue on. I'm trying to get an article off for Woodward Sports, so there's going to be something. I
was trying to do the same thing for Blush.
Yeah, both you and I are looking at each other like, let's go.
We're in a bad situation for the two of us, but it's all right.
This is like a bad dinner that we have, So.
We're all texting.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, I mean, so how many more moves do you see happening this offseason for the Tigers?
A lot.
Yeah, I will say that's not Scott Harris not making moves is something I'm not worried about. I know there's a lot of consternation this week. Like, why don't the Tigers do something, get better? And it's like he's gonna make moves. That's all they did at the Giants. But I'd be curious to see how many more kind of mid-tier moves like this. I feel like they'd like to trade Gregory Soto. I just don't know what the market is for him.
As a closer, probably not great.
Yeah, and it might be better to try to get him in a better rhythm. I mean, the man has if you look at Stuff Plus, I believe he had the second best sinker in the game for a left-hander. I don't know that I'd want to, I mean, what you'd like to do is just catch him in a good streak and try to work with him. Have Jamie Lund, kind of, or wait a minute. Yeah. Try to, work on that lower half and, just try to improve his balance and flexibility down there so he's not so stiff and prone to just go completely haywire, and see if you can kind of tune him up to where, it's acceptable level. It's like Camilo Doval levels of like scary rather than total predator, wild man levels of scary.
Look, I think
saw some things this year for sure.
We've all talked about this, and Raj wrote a really good article about it in the summer, which is, we all love to bag on Gregory Soto, and some of these outings are pretty rough to take. But
I love Gregory Soto
personally. But in the big scheme of life, he's much better than you think he is. And he was, and on top of it, he was not good at all last year in relative to what he's been in other years. He just could not repeat his release point, and you never knew what you were getting every time you wheeled him out there. And he still wasn't terrible until the last month of the season. So, he lost a lot of games. Okay, I get it. But the bottom line is he still saved a lot of games.
He's also a terrible guy to use in extra innings. Like, he is not the guy to put out there with a runner on base. Like, stop. For the love of God, stop doing that.
But when you look at Greg Soto, first of all, he's got 3 years of control left, which – when you start looking at it as an asset, you start going, I got to be able to make this guy better than he was. He can't be worse than he was last year. Okay.
Yeah.
What if I make him even slightly better? How valuable does he become as a trade piece then? If he's even throwing 15% more strikes than he was throwing last year, he had no slider for an entire season. I would tease you guys all the time, especially in the playoffs. Gregory Soto and Alvarado from the Phillies are literally like the same human being. Their build is not that different. Their fastball profile and velocity is this. And Alvarado was the same erratic Gregory Soto type of arm for years. And then they taught him a cutter. They polished his release a little more, and he was lights freaking out. And that's kind of what I'm hoping. If they keep Soto, there's a lot of asset value upside in him if they can improve him even a tiny bit.
Yeah. I mean, you have to. You can't give up on talent like that. I mean, that's just stupid. We're not trying to win right now anyway.
Remind me how many guys we have that throw 100.
Yeah, we got Gregory Soto.
He's the one.
Correct.
Foley, maybe.
Yeah.
Who
Foley
else?
can get it there. And if if our boy Matt could stay healthy for a damn year and put on that muscle again, we might see 2020 spring training Matt Manning of legend once more. But yeah, there's not a lot.
I don't think Matt Manning at this point in time, the days of Matt Manning throwing 98 I think those are a thing of the. Matt Manning was very happy with how he threw last year, and
Matt Manning was throwing 96, 97 just this year, just fine. I still think 99, 100's in there. He just has to stay healthy. I don't know if he will, but for me, Matt Manning is just, will he stay healthy? That's it. Because if he does, and he gets a lot of sustained reps, he'll be fine.
I think the Tigers will continue to try and acquire young players and undervalued type of players. I don't think there's too many splash players getting added to the roster here.
Here's some numbers for you, by the way. We did get a question I wanted everybody to address here, but here's some numbers for you on Mallory. You're gonna like this. He had in high A WRC plus a 144. When he got to double A, 125, and just in limited plate action, 33 games at Gwinnett, 136. Walk rate at high A, 14%. Okay, we can throw that out the window because it's high A, so it's kind of like depending on the league and all that. But then he gets to double A, Mississippi, 18.1.
And the
not too shabby.
The Baseball America profile pointed out that he played at Pitchers Parks for the most part, so maybe there's a little bit more power there. The one thing that I was looking at, he looks like he was an interesting college career. He started at Vanderbilt and just did not play his freshman year or his sophomore year. Sophomore year was the COVID year. So then he transferred to Georgia Tech. So he had basically 1 year of college baseball and played well, but that's why he lasted to the 6th round, because they're like, it's only 1 year. Who knows? And so there could be a little bit more of hey, that they got a good one here. And the Braves have drafted pretty well lately.
Pretty.
I mean, we all wanted, or at least had an interest in Dana Brown, taking over the team. So yeah.
The reason Justin Henry Malloy was their number one position prospect is because Vaughn Grissom and Michael Harris got to the majors and were very good way earlier than anybody expected. So, but Rod, you put up those questions there. I see one from Harrison Garrett too about trading Erod to the Marlins, and CC Gaming was asking about getting Jazz Chisholm, and I think that's not realistic at all because the Marlins have the same problem the Tigers do. They have pitching, but they don't have enough bats. I can't imagine them wanting to get rid of their good young infielder. Yeah,
if they get rid of him, they're starting from scratch again. He's the guy they should probably be building around. So and what is he? I don't even think he's got. Does he have 2 full years? Yeah, he does. So he's only got 2 years of service time. I don't think so.
I think Murphy has 3 years.
This is Jazz Chisholm.
Murphy does, but Jazz Chisholm only has 2 service. 2 years of service time. They're not going to deal him.
But to get back about dealing for Murphy, I mean, the question starts becoming: if you trade for a guy that has 3 years of service time left, if they're not good, if they're only starting to be good in 2024, now you got a guy that's got a year of service time by the time they're viable. That's not doing much for him, is it?
Well, I mean, it does plenty for me. I mean, that's a problem you have to address, but you just extend the man or figure something out. Yeah.
I think we touched on this earlier, and I think Scott Harris is smart enough that he's not using the word rebuild or anything like that. But he inherited a team that he doesn't like.
That's fair.
He wants to build a plane, and he's got a car, and so he's got
to melt all the metal back down and render it completely.
He's not going to say we're rebuilding here, but he's not going to go out and add a guy who's has only 3 years of control. That's plenty, right? But I don't think that his plan right now is to add someone like that. Maybe in a year they'll go after someone like that, but not right now.
In a year, you get a guy with 3 years of service time. Plus, you're not going to start burning the type of assets it's going to take to get Sean Murphy here and then really wonder how much viable time you have before you have to pay him. And now you're going to start paying 30-year-old catchers a lot of money to keep them. It's
go ahead and sign someone good, and then bam, there you are.
Well, that was why I wanted to sign Wilson.
I mean, this is all this is all very easily doable. It's just not easily doable to Chris Ilitch because Chris Ilitch doesn't want to spend any money. And that's it. That's why we don't like talking about this too much because it's repetitive. It's boring. It just pisses the fans off. I don't like talking about it a lot, but Chris Ilitch so far has been absolute garbage as the owner of the Tigers. I mean, it's been absolute malpractice over the last 5 years. And we all know that, by and large, we all wanted Al Avila gone in 2017, 2018. He stuck with it. We can go into this all day, but Chris Ilitch owes the fans something. And to me, what he owes the fans is to try to win right now. And you keep building, which is what good teams do. Good teams don't rebuild. Good teams don't tear down. Good teams just keep trucking along, even if they aren't going to spend $200 million. So they should start that right now. And if they're not, I'm not going to fault Scott Harris for that. I'm not going to be mad at Scott Harris, and I'm still optimistic about Scott Harris. But from the fans' perspective, there's no reason for them not to kind of just call bullshit on this,
All right, so basically the consensus is, of what you were asking is it seems unlikely they're going to do anything big, and they're mostly going to build from the bottom up at this point. Do you think that's a fair assessment to make of what this next 4 or 5 months is, even going into the season? There's nothing earth-shattering going to happen, and they're going to try to push the ball forward a little more, and hopefully the people that are pushing the ball forward this time are a hell of a lot smarter than the fools they had in there for 5 years. We're not even going to let me start going off on a rant because I'll have to
let's not do this.
Get medication.
Let's not do this. You can take your pills and stuff. Yeah, exactly. Right.
So
I mean, I kind of suspect that I think Scott Harris has something in mind, or will have something in mind that is bigger than just, mucking about the fringes of the roster, trading Erod, doing a few little things like that. I feel like he at least has some understanding that you can't go into your first, especially in the situation we've been in for this long, that you can't go into your first off season running a team and come out of it with nothing, that anyone but us, us deep wonks about it are going to really understand and appreciate. Like, I think he at least has some understanding. We've watched him handle the media really well. His understanding of PR, of giving you things that, sound interesting, that there's stuff you can write about, but also are completely non-committal. Whereas Dave Dombrowski just might not say anything at all. We all know kind of what Al Avila was like, and we're seeing a different pattern from Scott Harris that tells me he does understand that, he's got to give the fan base some kind of hope and something to kind of buy in on. But yeah, other than my hope that he's got some, slick trade up his sleeve that is going to impress us and bring a little offense to the team. Yeah, he's going to tweak the edges. He's going to try to rotate through the guys that don't really fit his profile. I mean, I think if we look at it, like Austin Meadows is kind of a Scott Harris player, not ideal, but more or less roughly fits how things would go. But obviously, Scope and Baez are 100% not. And they might be stuck with Baez for 6 years. Maybe Baez opts out. We'll see how that goes. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty much carte blanche for him to just tear it up and start over, because there isn't really that much there that that fits what he wants, or is going to be sorely missed either. So,
all right. So on this topic, I want to
do something, Scott Harris. I'm threatening you.
I wanted to ask Raj and Chris this because nobody went to more minor league baseball games than Raj and Chris. Okay, so I actually said some nice things about the caliber of position player prospects and the quantity that the Detroit Tigers have. It's the one thing I could say nice about Al Avila, besides that he left, is that they compiled a decent amount of position prospects, and heck, there's even two or three IFA guys in there.
Yeah.
So, I wanted to ask you guys. I mean, look, you got Meadows, you got Keith, you got Santana, who's my own personal favorite out of the whole bunch, and I mean, they're all very good. Campos, I think, is weirdly. I thought he used to think he was terrible. I've watched all the swing modifications they made with him, and he was extremely intriguing to me. What I saw last year, and if they can make one more small tweak and get him to stop hitting the ball on the ground, get it to come down from 55 into the high 40s, and the ball goes in the air a little more, he's going to immediately hit 20 homers.
Yep.
They have, I'm not even discussing what they drafted last year, which I didn't love that much, but you need to let them play before you really know what you have. So now they got Malloy. You need 7 or 8 prospects to get 2 good ones and one that's a contributing, adequate, everyday, regular kind of major league player. You're going to have a huge miss ratio on it, but they have some pretty interesting upside prospects. So why wouldn't you just keep trying to add to the nucleus so that it came to the show over a 12 to 36 month period of time?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if he can do that and get guys that are in the upper levels in particular, totally fine with it. Totally fine with it. I mean, we didn't, we could mention Wenzel. I mean, there's a couple other guys who are like
I forgot.
player type.
I think Wenzel will play in the show this year, but I wanted to ask you two guys, you watch these guys. Look, my ability to watch these guys most of the time is when, Chris and Roger doing cut-ups and I get to watch a whole bunch of stuff at one time. You guys sat at games and watched these guys play and talked to managers and talked off the record as well as on the record. Tell me what the two of you think about stuff you saw all last year and what people were saying about the caliber of players they had.
Well, Chris, I'll let you go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was funny. Some of what we saw was like, hey, this when we went to see Jace Young, it was like the scouts were like, yeah, it's a first rounder, huh? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, I want that guy, and pointing at Pacheco, and so I was not high on Pacheco after they drafted him because I'd seen him in the showcase circuits, and I was like, there's too much swing and miss. He's an all or nothing power guy, and I was blown away when I saw him in person last year.
How good was he this year?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. He was remarkable because he's a big kid, and what stood out immediately is that he knows how to hit. He's a hitter. He'll go the opposite way, and then you factor in that he is enormous. He's only going to get bigger. He's already got plus raw strength, and he was more athletic than I expected. He was
how good. He looks like a very solid defender at third. Would you not agree?
And I will say this. I'll take it a step further. Seeing him from Lakeland to West Michigan, it was night and day in terms of defensively, because when I saw him in person, and Chris and I remember this game when he against Jackson Jobe, where Jackson Jobe was pitching, he made like 2 really just stupid errors. And then he cleaned I think it was like 3 or 4 weeks later when I saw him down in Lakeland, it was like a different player altogether defensively. He looked much more composed. He showed a gun. I mean, he had a really good arm on him too. Yeah. And that first game against it was in Lansing when we first saw him. I honestly thought he looked better than Young did. I thought that he looked like what Scott was saying, an athlete. But the fact is, on some of the counts, the way he was working the counts too for his age, I thought that he was getting ahead of counts. Chris, I mean, there was something that I remember you were looking at too, where it was like a foul ball or something he had that was just. It was just like the way he was already kind of positioning himself to take an opposite field already.
Well, so I remember, I think it was the Jobe debut. And and Young was there, or not Young, Pacheco was there, and they brought in a lefty to face him, and the lefty kind of carved him up. And he battled, but then he came back, faced the lefty again, and ambushed him. Like he learned from that at bat. And then I asked I asked Pena, the Whitecaps manager, about that, and he said that even more impressive was that Pacheco came back to the dugout and immediately started telling everybody, without it being asked or anything like that, started telling everybody what he saw and what to look for, and what just this sort of, that was what impressed Pena the most, was like, okay, this kid gets it. He's got leadership qualities already. He was 19.
Yeah, baseball smarts and leadership. Yeah,
and so I think we saw a fair amount of that. Just a lot of, there was more dedicated development with players last year, and more understanding what guys do well. And Raj wrote a whole article about how we don't know who or how, but Winslow Perez adjusted his swing. He got more loft in his swing without
he was
sacrificing.
really good last year before his back got hurt.
Didn't sacrifice any patience or batting average. He's still fast. Defense is still iffy, but suddenly, he turned himself.
Put him in center field.
Okay. Yeah, exactly.
Serious. I'm serious.
A must-add 40-man guy after being kind of a failed prospect the year before. So we saw a lot of that this year.
Ryan Garco, thank you, my brother.
Yeah, I think it does seem.
We saw some things, didn't we? I mean, we've all watched the system a long time. Things decidedly changed on the hitting side.
This is why I'm bringing some of this up now. I mean, now let's add something. I mean, position prospect wise, I don't think it's, it's not. We've been doing this together for many, many years, boys. I don't think that saying that I'm typically the most negative about some of this stuff is a stretch here. Okay.
Shocking confessions.
Shocking. I mean, but let me just do this before I forget. I got a chance to talk to Garco a few times too, because he was in the press box, and I told him, Terry Minor reporting was a fan of her work, blah, 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 which was nice to hear. And he mentioned like some of these things were just simple, getting stronger. Like that's all. Like he just kind of was. He simplified it just that simple, just as simply as that. And we even like another example is somebody that I know that was Rule 5 eligible, or somebody mentioned on the Baseball America's best organization, best curve, is Andrew Mango, for example. Andrew Mango was not a prospect at all. He was just, and Chris mentioned this, he was a guy that you saw in the backfields. He was just like, who is this guy? Then he comes in against Somerset and throwing gas and throwing this breaking ball. You're like, who the hell? Andrew Mango. Andrew Mango. Look, and I'm emphasizing that because there's some guys that have literally came out of nowhere.
What about the Wolf?
The Wolf. No, and that's great. The
He's
guy went
42 years old, bro.
Listen to me, Mark. The fact is, he changed his arm angle from a high to mid.
He got a cutter.
He got a cutter, and he went back a little more. He rocked in a little more on his delivery. He's a different pitcher. You would not see that from this organization.
That was the guy who was a Rule 5 that I surprised someone didn't take.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't take him either, and that's who I thought somebody would take him.
Yeah, Raj, you never used to see that stuff where they'd make serious changes. Yeah,
I never, as long as I've watched this team throughout. I mean, look at this. I'm wearing a damn London Tigers hat. But this is how long, even before this, before they moved to London, when they were in Evansville, I've never seen them go.
That was my feeling. Now. But Raj, here, look, guys that improved, that literally you were ready to cut. Parker Meadows, Winslow Perez, Keter Montero. I mean, how much did
I wasn't ready to cut Keter Montero.
Well, but he hadn't done anything in 2 years.
No, I know. Yeah, for sure.
Right? How much better did Campos get? Okay,
quite a bit.
How about
let me just make this one point too about Garco, because people should go check out that Evan Petzold article about Parker Meadows, because it was like a perfect microcosm of the way. Pipe down for a second. That because Garco he is very direct. He was just like, Meadows got stronger. We told him to hit the ball harder. That's it. Like flat out, like you have to do these things or you're not going to have a role. You have to impact the baseball. Just putting it very simply, like there are these simple baselines, and we're not just gonna throw out all the sort of scout and coach speak that we heard, under the previous regime for years. I'm going to tell you flat out, you're going to need to do this. You're going to need to do that. You're going to need to do this. And we're going to help you do it. But you have to commit to doing these couple of things or you don't have a career. And being able to be just that blunt and direct while also selling it to young players who a lot of times have, longtime coaches, their dad, all those different, voices in their head, takes a bit of doing. And I mean, maybe Parker Meadows changed his swing, but he also is just 6'5" and 195 or 200 pounds when we got him, and now he's 240. And the same thing might be true with Pacheco. He's going to get a lot bigger. The two of those guys might have more similarities than we think right now. I was shocked at how good Pacheco's defense was. Did not expect that at all. He looked like a lumbering ox type when we got him, and within a year,
right,
he was cleaned up and moving a lot better, and and just fundamentally much more sound in his footwork and the way he attacked balls, the way he read the ball off the bat, the way he reacted. It was all much more impressive than we've ever seen. So,
which is why I don't read too much into who we drafted last year, because the same thing that we thought about those guys after a winter of working out, getting stronger, and becoming more mature in major, playing.
Just you wait and when Peyton Graham is 170 pounds of rock solid muscle this year, in your face, boy.
So, I mean, the one thing
I'm gonna remain the big Peyton Graham honk here. That's gonna happen. So.
I think he has maybe the highest upside in the system if he can hit, because the athleticism, the defense is there. But the one thing I wanted to point out was what you saw was that they have plans for everyone now, and it's not just the prospects. There were guys that they just found ways to make guys better for their own good. A guy like Dane Myers, had a great year. Corey Joyce turned into this weird walk machine. Corey Joyce. And like you'll see the work, Ted Stuka, this big 6'8" reliever, they dropped him down to like pure sidearm, and he's just scary as hell, throwing 95, 96, and he didn't do anything, but they were just finding ways to do stuff with guys just in case. And what the result is that they won more games across the system. Rod just pointed out this many times. They had a winning record at all four levels for the first time ever.
Ever.
And when you do that, when you help everybody, occasionally somebody pops. And I don't know why teams haven't done this forever. But I understand that it's more resources and more difficult.
Pay everybody the same kind of attention.
When's the last time they took a pitcher like Joey Wentz? When he first came up, Raj liked Joey Wentz, and I would keep telling him, Raj, the command is so horrible. I just can't see it. Okay. And then he gets hurt in the second outing. He comes back and he starts throwing at the end of August. After the second time he was throwing, I'm texting you guys like, what the fuck am I watching? What is this? This is unbelievable. I cannot believe how good it was. Okay. And he kept repeating it every outing after that. And if you don't understand that when you can command the baseball, they taught him the cutter, they got him to throw more strikes. Holy smokes, dude. People said, well, he was the second best pitcher they had for those 5 starts. It wasn't even close. So he's going to be the 5th starter. I'm like going, if he's throwing like he was in September, he ain't the 5th starter. All right. So the theme that I think we're trying to bring out here is they made a ridiculous amount of players for the first time in our memory better. It was awe-inspiring how many players they made better.
Well, it basically, I mean, Al Avila's fatal flaw, among many of them, was not doing this in 2016, not adding development staff like this. He waited 3 years, 4 years too long, and a lot of these guys are going to show up to the big leagues over the next 2-3 years, and some of them will work, some of them won't. But that's what he needed. He needed that level of depth of prospects to supplement for a year like this, where they finally spend money and things don't work out. If they had those high-level prospects, they could have made trades, they could have brought guys up and still figured it out. But he didn't have that because he waited too long. And the result is we're kind of rebuilding again under a new leadership. And to Scott Harris's credit, he didn't blow out the entire organization. He looked around and saw what was good.
Everybody in player development and added to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think to that point, we agree that the player development staff did its job. It was just too little too late for Al Avila and for the Tigers this year. But it's a good sign for things going forward. And we haven't even touched on it. Tigers got some lottery luck yesterday. They now have the 3rd pick in the draft and what looks like a very bat-heavy top of the draft. And then they have 2 more picks in the top 50. So they're going to be adding more talent to the system, to these development staff. And so, yeah, in that regard, I think things are looking up. It's going to take a little while again. And I know fans don't want to hear that, but that's just the reality of it right now.
That's kind of why I wanted to touch on this, because you guys had gone to see it and talk to people so often. When you speak it out loud and understand, that's probably how Harris sees it too. I'm not saying they're not going to add some interesting things before the year, begins, but it's probably less likely than we think. They're for sure not going to do anything huge, or they're only going to do something that's bigger with the idea that it defrays risk, or they could sell it later, or I think they're much more committed to creating this nucleus of 10 or 15 younger players that are all gonna, like I said, over the next 12 to 30, over the next 2 to 3 years, starting next year, are going to start coming up and actually playing. I mean, look, I think we don't need to digress into discussing Riley Green, because I don't know anybody who doesn't think Riley Green's going to be a star. Okay.
Some people out there want him to be traded already, but
we don't even need to discuss it. So,
yeah.
But at the same time, we obviously need to hope that Spencer Torkelson will be a little more coachable. Was that my nice way of saying it?
Yeah.
And less stubborn. And at least fulfill some of his promise. Okay. And we'll see where we go from here. Hopefully Austin Meadows can play a full season next year. Jakey can come back and be listen, I think, team chemistry, as much as people like to poo-poo it, it does have some impact on how you play as a unit. Jakey Rogers was a big part of the team chemistry when they started playing well in 2021. So
yeah, we can talk about the team. Something we noticed in Erie, Chris, that remember with that one certain infielder that we want to go into, I think I've told you guys about that story, right?
Right.
Yeah. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yep.
But, well, I just want to double back real quick to that. We don't expect anything huge, and by that I think we're talking about not a giant free agent signing or anything.
Right. I'm not signing Chris Bassett. Okay.
No, I don't think they're signing anything. I don't think we'll see any deal for 3 years or more. Maybe a 3-year deal for
You'll
somebody.
be lucky if they re-sign Andrew Chafin for 2 years and $16 million. Okay.
Yeah, but it would not shock me if we see one of those 5 core top 100 prospects from a couple years ago, one of them get traded. Yeah. I don't know who. 2 of them are hurt right now, so that would be tough. Yeah. But if you consider that huge, it wouldn't shock me, just because of the way that they have the distribution of talent right now. And my guess would be one of the arms, but just based on the other pitching that they've accumulated, not necessarily great, but we talked about Wentz. You've got Brisky, you got Faedo, you got Wilmer Flores coming up. You've got some other arms coming up.
Yeah.
So that they can deal from that if they want to. And it wouldn't shock me if they do.
And, Chris, I think that of all the things, Brandon's really good at seeing this too, is that I think they're extremely arrogant almost. In the one thing they really think they do well at the major league level is develop pitching. I think they're very, very confident in their capacity to optimize pitchers that they have.
Yeah. And as we know, and as we've also noted, considering where we think their strengths are, they built the team under Al Avila almost backwards. They drafted all this pitching. They did a nice job, by and large, picking the right guys. I mean, getting Joey Wentz for Shane Green right now looks like a very good trade. Very solid. But this is what happens when you have a team built around young pitching, is that they all get hurt, and this is why a lot of the top teams don't bother too much unless they have someone they believe is Walker Buehler, Luis Urias type elite level. They just won't bother with too many of those guys. They'll move those guys, they'll turn those guys into Tony Gonsolin types or just pure relief guys. And the Tigers kind of did build it backwards. What they could do is trade pitching and then trust, Chris Fetter and the repair shop, to tune some guys up, to help some guys who've been injured, kind of recapture their career, take it to a new level. They I can see them banking on their ability to do that still more so than that they're going to, take some project hitter like a Nomar Mazara type guy and fix that guy. I think we all probably, we couldn't help but approve of the new hitting coaches because they got themselves a team of them with some interesting people and interesting resumes involved. But, as I've argued on Twitter and gotten yelled at for a whole bunch of times, like hitting coaches just don't seem to matter as much as people would like them to in the way that pitching coaches do, because you can't practice hitting the way you can practice pitching. And that's just never going to change until there's absolutely dialed, human AI pitching machines that, can mimic whoever you want. And it's an actual physical body throwing the thing at you. So all that is just hard, so, they can tear down the hitting coaches as they want, but it's just, that's not where their strength is as far as development goes right now. And they're working on it. And I think we saw a lot of good signs in the farm system that, that they've made progress in that regard, but that's not right now their strength. Maybe they're average now. Maybe with the new guys, they'll be a little better than that.
I think they're hitting development in the minor leagues may have been better than it was in the major leagues.
Ever.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get so animated about this, but it's just I'll give an example of why I get so animated about this. When I think it was when we went to West Michigan, one of the first times we went to West Michigan, and this is like 2018, 2017, and there was really not much. You saw the tools being used and everything like that. But then the next year, it was Andre Lipsius had that ring thing around his bat, and then you can see he was making adjustments, but nobody else was. Quintana, nothing. And then
you know where Lipsius learned that, right?
Where?
Vanderbilt.
In the nuclear physics lab.
Tennessee. Oh yeah, he's at Tennessee. He was at Tennessee.
Yeah.
He had a bat sensor.
Oh, bad. But but then you see things like you saw the little things that like one of the things we're noticing about the hitting a little bit was just the amount of video. The cameras have doubled. You've seen little things like in the cages with the drills and the heavy balls. Like we're all making jokes about spring training about them having the balls with the little weights on them and throwing against the wall. But the Tigers have this is a franchise that they were the last franchise to have a mandatory amount of minor league teams, because until 1991, 1992, you could get away with not having one minor league team. And they had one pitching coach for the entire system because Monahan was so cheap and didn't have enough money that they didn't spend jack crap on the minor league system.
And then Illich followed that through by spending all the money on major leaguers and stripping the minor leagues bare. And now we're poaching coaches from other good orgs. They've got multiple coaches at each level for different tasks and different responsibilities. And also trying to find those personality fits. Giving you a couple different options as a player with who you're going to work with a little bit more. All that different stuff. I mean, it can sound simple to just say that, it's like a bulk rate, like, well, we got more coaches, but giving yourself a variety of guys who are all focused on the same goal. I mean, I've always used that Nick Castellanos example of, every level he went to, he had a different hitting coach who taught him something different and wanted him to emphasize something different. And there was no consistent program, no consistency throughout the organization in how they were going to develop people. And it won't be that way anymore. We've already seen that starting, and it's only going to be, more integrated and unified throughout the org with Harris there and the guys he's hired so far. So, I mean, these are all very positive signs. I feel like we're talking an awful lot about the farm system, which tells you what to expect in the next year or two, unfortunately, at the major league level still. But but there are a lot of positive signs in the organization. I mean, we all agree that the organization is going in a much, much better direction, starting with Kenny Graham and then Garco and finally getting rid of Littlefield and moving on from Chad and,
finally.
I mean, even in the last, gasp of Al Avila's tenure, things were improving perhaps more than was obvious. So, and with all these improvements, we're seeing a lot more of that, come to fruition in the players themselves. So, yeah, there's a lot of good things. I heard you guys talking a little bit while I was gone about just about team building and about, finding guys who gel well together. And I mean, maybe, that might be part of the motivation for Matt Boyd. I mean, Matt Boyd was the first guy to go to Driveline, and come back and just, put Rick Anderson on block. Like, nope, shut up. I got it. I got it figured out. And, and took it to a new level. And obviously Matt Boyd is an extremely likable person. He seems to have, leadership, capabilities of his own. I was a little sticker shocked at first, but seeing what else has been paid, like, fine, you can't get whoever you want either. Matt Boyd's comfortable here, and that kind of thing can pay some dividends as well. Because even AJ Hinch said this yesterday in his interview, just that, he emphasized this. Riley Green getting hurt in spring training just took the air out of everyone.
I bet.
And then you had Austin Meadows get hurt. You had Robbie Grossman tear his groin in the first, 2 weeks of the season. Javi Baez tore his thumb and then went on to have the worst, month of his career in May. A lot went wrong, and there didn't seem to be any. Jonathan Scope got to camp with 10 days left or whatever because of the visa issues. It all just started on a really bad foot, and they didn't have anyone there to sort of settle everyone down and just manage to get them to gel a little bit and relax. So, those things are important too. And I really do kind of look at this last year as pretty fluky. I mean, I could easily see them just having run that team back and then win 78, 80 games. Wouldn't have shocked me, which is why I don't think they're quite as far away as maybe Harris and Hinch even seem to think right now. And I'll have to trust their assessment on that. It's weird being the optimistic one. Like, if you got yourself two good hitters, if you catch some breaks and the season goes well and Meadows hits like he's supposed to and Scope and Baez bounce back and hit like they're supposed to, and Riley and Torkelson get better, which are all, five ifs, but not huge ifs. You could be right there. And this division just sucks. It's so frustrating to not be able to compete in it, It's like nobody to be scared of, and yet we're still just like, well, give us another, couple years, maybe we'll get there.
But so I think someone's asking about Joey Gallo.
Yeah, I was just going to say, in terms of taking flyers, why? Okay, so it's the division being wide open, and CC Gaming with a really good question about taking a flyer on players, and this is the kind of thing that Scott Harris would do. Is Gallo one of them? I really don't know. I think he strikes out too much, in my opinion, but
he does walk a ton, though.
Yeah, it's true.
But yeah, I mean, it's like having Alex Avila, with
I think it's
with
more
power or something.
With the shift being eliminated, I think Joey Gallo. Look, if Joey Gallo hits 230,
yeah, right,
he's almost a 5-WAR player.
Yeah, I mean, we've all seen there's been a lot of analysis. I don't think the shift going away is going to change things hugely, but for certain guys, it might be, fairly substantial, and he's perfect. Yeah, he's the perfect candidate for that.
Which is why I think a team that's a little more in content. First of all, Joey Gallo, at least for now, is going to ask for a lot of money until somebody doesn't give it to him.
At least what Bellinger got, you would kind of think, yeah.
How did Bellinger get that much money? I tweeted something which is basically the cumulative stats of the last 3 years. I was like,
blackmail?
Holy smoke! Have you people lost your mind?
I mean, he is pretty. I don't know.
I do want to reel it back because I think we didn't really go into. I know we talked about the Rule 5 thing, the Rule 5 pick a little bit. We did discuss. I originally wanted the whole entire podcast has been thrown off the loop, which is something that I usually, as the commander of the ship, if you will, as the host, I'm trying to. But I realize we've gone in so many different directions with this because the trade threw us off. One thing I do want to mention that happened today was congratulations to John Lowe of the Free Press, who won the Baseball Writers Association Career Excellence Award. And no, I did not vote on it because I still don't start till next year on that. But so congratulations to him. He was the one who invented the quality start stat in 1986.
Oh yeah.
So kudos to him, and he joins Tom Gage and the great Joe Falls as the Detroit beat writers represented in that wing. So congratulations. Who the third the third Detroit beat writer to win that award. So
And quality starts are much more valuable now than they were when he invented that. You don't get a whole lot more than 6 innings these days. So
Yeah, back then everyone yelled at him and we're like, "Oh, quality starts. This is bullshit. If you don't go 8 innings, you're not a real man."
Yeah, you didn't go a complete game. He would get yelled at by maybe Jack Morse about that. But one thing I forgot to also mention too that came up, the AAA selection. The Tigers lost.
Dane Myers.
Dane Myers. Dane Myers.
Another good example of like a guy that everybody would have given up on. They found a little bit. Yeah.
And Chris said, Chris, you were talking about Myers' improvement, but also we saw him in the field. Everybody loved him in Erie.
Yeah. He was a huge hit in Erie. Like that's one of the things you don't like.
Dogs.
Yeah, I mean, 25 home runs, 21 steals. He was the first Erie player ever to go 2020. He didn't. Yep. He swung at everything, and he didn't walk. Yeah. He was limited as a player, but it's still kind of remarkable that he did that as a guy who came into the system as a pitcher. He played both ways in college, but he spent the first 3-4 years in the system as a pitcher, and last year was really his first full year as a hitter.
And they start him at Double-A,
Let me tell you that if you can come in the system as a pitcher, I think how many years did he pitch? Like 3, right?
I think so, because that was the 2017 draft.
And then 2.5 years after that, you are hitting 25 dongs in Double-A. You're a hell of a baseball player, even if you don't make it to the show. You are. It
kind of speaks to just picking the athlete sometimes, especially someone who's like got character and is going to work at it, can work out for you, or at least make for a better bet than some for sure.
What I will say to you guys is that the one thing that makes Mark Gorash super, super happy is that Dane Myers did not walk, and Dane Myers is not a Tiger anymore.
One of these days, we're not even gonna have to worry about walks anymore. We're gonna get O-swing for the minor leagues. I'm gonna be so happy.
Continuing with the theme of the off season, no walkie, no stay. Okay, Harold Castro, arguably their second best hitter this year. They just said, Harold, listen, I'm going to tell you what, we got this towel that says Harold Castro on it from you that you've had here in the locker room for the last few years. We want you to take this hat, and I want you to take your travel bag, and we've really enjoyed having you here.
Did you get it? Did you get Miggy? Did Miggy ever sign a bat for you? We should do that.
I wonder if they just look at everybody's walk rate. They're like 3%. Get out.
Yeah.
Let's see here.
If it's under 7, you got to go.
Yeah, you got to go.
Under, I think my threshold is at the major league level 6.5, and you have to be just mashing it at 6.5. So
or a genius defender. Yeah, you got to have something. There got to be some big old tools.
But the point is, when he's telling you, that's as a basic premise of being a position player for the Detroit Tigers now, you better be able to walk. Period.
I don't know if this was in the press release or if this was just a live quote, but Evan Petzold has a quote from Scott Harris on Justin Henry Malloy, and he says that he is the type of hitter that can help us reshape our offensive identity.
Yeah,
there you go.
Embodies a lot of the things we really value in hitters. He controls the strike zone. He has plus bat to ball skills. He does damage to all fields.
Damn.
By the way, this is the in the AAA phase of the Rule 5 draft. Tigers took Lane Henderson from Houston, and Trevor Huth thinks it's the funky delivery. I don't know. It's kind of fall.
Well, look at his head.
Oh yeah,
his head almost hits the ground.
Boom. Oh, all right, I see it now.
Yeah, he's a lanky guy. It looks like the fastball probably has some ride. It's a AAA reliever. I will see in the minors.
Put it this way: it's obvious they really like Malloy.
Yeah.
In fact, it wouldn't shock me if they went to Atlanta and said, we like Malloy, and Atlanta's response was, we want Jimenez.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And look, and that's, if there's one thing about Scott Harris I'll say right now, he's got brass ones, because I don't think Avila would pull a trigger. Like, honestly, like, I'm not trying to play Monday morning quarterback with this, but think about this for a moment. The Tigers got not a lottery card. They didn't, or a lottery ticket for once. They did not get a damn scratch off. when it comes to
yesterday.
something like
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, he did way better than we got for Michael Fulmer, and Michael Fulmer is a pretty good reliever, with the track record.
I wonder if they'd re-sign Michael Fulmer.
Yeah, somebody mentioned that in the chat earlier, and I think so.
I'd love to re-sign Michael Fulmer because I don't think he's quite figured it out with that slider yet, and when he does, he's going to be fucking hell on people throwing 94 with that. I mean, it was nasty when he was on, so yeah, I'd love to see that. That'd be fine. He's going to cost a bunch now, though, probably.
I still, what's funny about Scott Harris is we only had, they did the scrums every night, so we had some quotes from him. And like you try to get, like he was, like we said, he was saying that they're doing a rebuild without saying they're doing a rebuild. But then he would say things like, they asked him about the Rule 5. He's like, hey, we haven't even looked at that yet. And I'm like,
Yeah,
well,
right.
that is 100% a lie.
Yeah, right. Sure, you haven't.
You're lying for no reason. What's the point of that?
This was in his pocket the entire time.
I don't like.
I've heard that from a bunch of people too, where it's like, well, he needs time to evaluate the farm. No, Scott Harris came in here knowing the farm system probably better than the previous guys did.
What did I tell
and
you
so
guys?
Did Connor. So did Metzler probably. So
what did I tell you guys? The very first thing I thought Scott Harris did when he got here, before he even unpacked, he went in there at the time of year it was. He called all the quants in. He called a few other people in, and he went, "Okay, look, I need to understand what you think is the matter with Heimer Candelario. Everybody write it up, independent of each other. I want to see all the work from everybody." Okay. He was able to figure out who in his analytics department he liked or didn't like, or what their style was, who had insight, and he wanted to understand himself, and he was going to, but it was a way of handing out an assignment.
Right.
All
the waiver claims are the same thing.
Yeah.
I want to put you through the process where I want all these guys evaluated. Everybody who gets waived, I want reports, immediately on all these guys. Yeah.
So my answer on Heimer Candelario was, we all like to think that, yeah, for $3.5 million in incentives, let's keep them. Okay. But I get the feeling they had a chance to keep him, and they didn't want to keep him. that was the other part. I mean,
right. Convince me to keep him. Yeah.
Well, from what they look, remember something. If you take out 2021 in the COVID year, everything else around Heimer Candelario for his career as a Tiger was. What's the matter with Heimer Candelario? We sent him to the minors 2 times, for heaven's sake. Okay,
he swings at strikes. He doesn't do damage. Isn't a very good defender.
The bottom line is, whatever assessment they made, they were like, look, it's this. We're not. We only have another year of them if we keep them anyway. Okay. And, in the overall assessment of it, they just went, you know what, let's just move on. Okay. Yeah. And that's.
Well, let's take this even further too, because it's all the things that you get by bringing in someone new, not only like a fresh eye on all of those individual players, but we all know, and we've all criticized the Tigers for being very insular. It was an obvious answer, 5 years ago to go try to hire people from the Rays, go try to hire people from the Astros and the Dodgers. And they never wanted to do that. When when you're stagnant like that, you lose your contacts, throughout the league, unless you're like super gregarious and just like the type of person who will call about a trade, every day just to have the conversation and kind of try to read your opponent a little bit and play a little poker with it. They've got all new guys in there right now, and Scott Harris has a ton of energy. I imagine he's having conversations about all kinds of things. In fact, things that he doesn't even want to do, or players he doesn't even want. But I'll call you about this player because I want to see who you asked for in my system. All those different things that a GM that seemed just incredibly passive, just like a potato.
By the way,
sitting there, like Al unfortunately was. Scott isn't going to be that way. He's young, he's energetic, he's been with the Cubs, he's been with the Giants, he's seen their evaluations of everyone. He just got Metzler and Connor. He's got all their evaluations of everyone. It's just part of it is just information warfare and information gathering, and you couldn't do it under the previous regime, even if they had kind of had a better idea how to do so. So we're going to have to get used to, trusting these guys to have, wildly different ideas than we used to see. And, and we've already kind of mentioned that as far as them having very different views about every player in the farm system, probably than was, present beforehand. So, we are going to have to trust the process to some degree. And, that's why I'll just keep yelling at Chris a little bit about not spending. Not you, Chris. I love you, but but other than that, we're gonna have to kind of get to know these guys and for once be sort of taught by them. Whereas before it was a lot of like, is it me? Like, am I wrong? I don't know, because just what are they doing all the time? It was just always
Brandon,
like that.
You shouldn't look, Brandon. The bottom line is Mark Gurash, myself, you, or Chris should not be able to guess what the Tigers' offseason should be. And that, look, in Motor City Bengals, I mean, we're like, okay, so it suggests a pitcher like, what was the Julio Teheran? They signed Julio Teheran. Like, all these things were just like, I'm not going to like toot my own horn or anything, but it is strange to see. But
no, you can just read them. Yeah, you can read them like
and
a
look,
book.
And Sky Harris yesterday, look, the biggest thing that I liked was he's like, he knows what's going on Twitter. Like, that to me is, look, I know it sounds like Twitter is a cesspool. We all know Twitter pool is this evil,
especially lately. Thanks, Elon.
It's been a strange goo of things, but the fact that Scott Harris knows what's up, like, I gotta give a tip of the cap to him for that. And the bottom line is this: they might be, for the first time, where unlike Avila, where he signed Ray Rivera and thought he was the smartest guy in the room for that, they actually might be the smartest people in the room because. Yeah. Why would you give 5 years to Wilson Contreras? 5 years?
I could listen. We could have this discussion.
Totally could.
I didn't have a problem with doing that,
especially for $87 million. Like, if it had gone to 120 or something, I wouldn't get involved. But yeah.
But what I'm saying about that, Raj, is that you couldn't just do that. It had to be part of 2 or 3 moves.
Right.
Wilson Contreras is a 120 WRC plus walk and power hitting player. Okay. He's going to catch progressively less as time goes on. He's going to catch 80 games this year and 60 games next year and 40. He's going to be a DH in 2025. He could have played a little first base or a little left field. Look, let me say it to you this way. When Torkelson fell flat on his face, one of the biggest reasons why they did not demote him is they didn't have anyone to play first base. How stupid is that?
How bad is that? That's tragic for a farm system. CC Gaming 64, I see you, bro. It's a mess.
Your replacement was 5'9" 680 OPS, 3% walk rate, Harold Castro.
Yeah, or we'll throw Scope in there, and then we'll have to put Castro at second. I mean, to not have a first baseman is
So I don't have an issue with paying. So I don't have an issue with paying as part of a larger grouping of talent infusion a guy that can catch 60 to 80 games and have a 120 WRC plus that's been on the All-Star team and still only 30 years old or 31. I didn't have a problem with that. It was part of getting 2 other competent players with him. That's when I wanted to do it. And by the way,
this is why I go with the Correa, sign Correa, get Sean Murphy, because doing one or the other doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But
correct.
But if you do both, it could get very interesting. But anyway,
Raj, all I'll say to you about Wilson Contreras is, if the St. Louis Cardinals want Wilson Contreras,
that's saying something. He
might be pretty good.
No, you're right about that. But I just think that for the money, again, I think he's more of a DH or anything. Go ahead, Chris. What were you saying?
Oh no, I thought it was a great fit for both. The Cardinals, they have they draft so well. They've got such a good offense right now. But they needed a catcher and they got one. But yeah, I think that the 5th year probably is what got him to sign there, and he probably had larger AAV.
It is for sure why he signed there, because I had 2 people that know the answer to that question, both telling me that his agent wanted a 5th year and was determined to get a 5th year. And I was hearing this because I wanted him to sign here, and I was going, I don't know.
Yeah,
somebody's really giving him a 5th year.
That's what I mean,
They
Mark.
gave it to him.
I mean, that's the thing, though. Any free agent deal, you're gonna lose. Late in the deal. I mean, that's
what happened with Judge too.
To your point, Brandon, like 17 million a year in 5 years, that's going to be not. I mean, even right now, it's like it doesn't feel that bad. Like if he's in the last 2 years of his deal and you owe him 17 a couple of years, it's like, well, all right, we'll eat that, whatever.
And look,
inflation, whatever.
Yeah, I mean,
shout out to Jay Powell, but
I mean, I don't like. I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I don't mind Eric Haas being the number one catcher. I really don't. I think he's fine to platoon him there. You have Jake Rogers, as you guys mentioned earlier, but at the same, but look, if they can find somebody else out there that could be, I would rather have somebody like for depth purposes that could potentially be like a first baseman / catcher, like just kind of like a utility player like that.
Yeah, I'm putting for me. I want Eric Haas in right field. I want that arm in right field. I want that speed in the outfield. I want that speed on the base paths. You get me. I'd rather have Rogers than Narvaez. Personally, I mean, I love Rogers behind the plate, especially especially the arm strength and knowing that there's going to be a lot more running this year. But yeah, I mean, Eric Haas isn't going to kill you back there. He's just not. He's not. Very close to my ideal defensive catcher. That's. I'll just put it semi-mildly. Neither is Wilson Contreras, certainly. So maybe Christian Vasquez is the better idea. I don't know.
Well, they're not getting any of those guys, but
seemingly, yeah.
Well, but like I said, Omar Narvaez, I'm willing to wager on this now. But I just look, and Eric Haas is a really, really fun player, but he's a player that's 300 to 350 at bats, and I think once you get beyond that point.
I actually thought someone might come looking for Eric Haas this offseason because he does. I mean, it's funny to say this when I talk about his speed, but go look up his sprint speed. Like Eric Haas is legit fast.
Crazy good.
He's fast. He could play center field potentially. He has that kind of speed. As a utility type guy who was just your lefty masher, you can use him in so many different ways. And I did kind of think like some sneaky team might come through trying to hold balance on that.
I wanted to ask you guys something. I don't know if Raj had it on his list, but we don't get to do this stuff together very much anymore. And, this is pretty interesting. So, I mean, there's going to be some changes to the way they play baseball next year. So you're going to have a pitch clock. You got bigger bases. There's no shift. I want you guys to tell me what you think will happen, how the game's going to change, how the type of players there are going to be different types of players now become devalued and valued. So I think if I'm guessing from a catching standpoint, you better be able to accurately throw to second base because with larger bases, more people are going to steal. Stealing bases in the major leagues, it's trite when I say this, but for the most part, it's a math problem, okay? Yeah. They know how long it takes you to get there, and they know how long it takes for the pitcher to deliver the ball to the plate and the catcher to get the ball to second base. And so those numbers, those metrics with bigger bases are going to change, and you only can throw over to first base you only can throw 2 times. So I think there are some subtle things about the game that are going to change, and I'm just curious what your guys' thoughts are going to be because there's going to be some changes in the way they play baseball.
Yeah, there definitely is. I think the hard part is quantifying how much it's going to change. There is going to be a team that thinks they've got the whole thing figured out and really goes in on that. Okay, we're going to go get a bunch of slap hitting speedy guys who can actually post a solid OBP, or we're going to emphasize pitchers with short deliveries. We don't want anybody who has a full windup anymore. There's going to be teams that overreact to it, and there's going to be teams that underreact to it. And probably the hardest part is to get that balance right for yourself. It's easy to say I'd like to have some speed back. I kind of thought Willie Castro might have an outside shot, even despite the fact that he can't control the strike zone, just because he's fast. The Tigers could use another fast guy. They don't really, they've got Baddoo. Baez can steal some bags.
There's a wild card player right there for you.
But that's there. Josh Rojas again. is the answer. Unfortunately, not a great answer, but just like the answer that that might fit. But I would love to have another fast guy on the roster. The other thing I've been talking about that I wrote about, and I'd like to add this into the mix. No one has really reacted to the fact that there is a special teams game in baseball now, because it seems like we're stuck with Manfred ball. We're going to have 12% of games end in extra innings under these weird rules. How much are you willing to commit a roster spot to a guy specifically for that? Like a guy who handles the bat and is fast, or, a reliever who is particularly good at getting fly balls and can handle having, runners on base behind him. How much do you emphasize that too? That's 12% of games are going to go to that. If that was football and one game was decided by completely different rules, you'd have a special teams, unit that was all devoted to winning that one particular thing. So there's a lot of things in the air with the way the rules have changed.
As a catcher, what do you think about only being able to throw to first twice and narrowing the distance between the bases for, encouraging to have more of a running game?
I like it because if you look at baseball in the 80s, for example, with Whitey Ball, with Whitey Herzog, with the Cardinals. Sorry, I had to.
That was also baseball before 1947.
Yeah, but I was thinking about those Cardinals teams in the 80s that had Vince Coleman on them and Willie McGee and Ricky Henderson. That was fun. I mean, even Billy Beanball, which was the same thing he did in Oakland in the early 80s. I like that kind of style of baseball. Chris, go ahead. What were you going to say?
I just got to tell you that the Guardians are already playing that.
Yeah.
They're all prepared for this. They've got
the Guardians.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we're the ones with the ballpark, which we can tie into later. That kind of style should actually be played in. So yeah, I mean, progressive too, but especially us.
Fangraphs, by the way, Fangraphs had the great headline about the Josh Bell signing. It's a Guardians sign, largest possible version of stereotypical Guardians hitter. That's fantastic.
That is so true.
That is so and
it sounds like a Grant Brisbee line to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he even used the Scotty, the Guardians name of power in there too, but. No, look, the one of the things that I will say about the game that I do like is that hopefully it goes more towards athleticism and having those, as you said, Brandon, special team kind of players to it. That's an element like you think of. I think of, like, for example, when I think of it's been relatively with relievers where you have the left-handed specialist and all that, but to have that kind of ability to go to your bench and say, this is the guy that we know can hit more lift, so therefore, or he can hit more in the air, we're going to use him a certain way, I think is a prime example of baseball analytics in the correct manner. Because I know people always complain about there's too much people, and I think it's always people who don't understand this stuff. But as far as you're concerned, Chris, though, what was something that you're looking forward to with this?
With the rule change, well, we loved the pitch clock down in the minors.
Yes,
boy, those games are so much faster. And the quality of play was exactly the same. I didn't notice any drop off at all. I think people are going to – I mean, the people who like to go to a baseball game and pound like 8 beers over a 4-hour game are going to be bummed out. But, but you're just going to have to drink faster.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, like these games are going to end in 2.5 to 3 hours, and they're going to be tidy, and it's fun.
Yeah.
I think it's going to impact velocity a little bit.
Yeah, it probably will impact fatigue and velocity, I would imagine, a little bit. Although we're already at such an extreme place in both regards. I mean, what I'm thinking about in special teams, like, I mean, do I want Derek Hill back? Is it worth having a Derek Hill just because you can terrorize?
No.
Okay, not Derek Hill. Fine.
Okay.
But there's maybe 10 guys, maybe 20 guys who can steal bases like that, where they're an absolute fucking terror on second base behind you. And is it worth getting a guy like that, if they can get on base?
Well, here's my answer about that, B.
Here's another question. Wait, I'm not done.
All right,
what's the most exciting play in baseball? Is it a home run or is it a triple?
Triple.
There you go.
Inside the park home run.
Speed, baby. Yeah, okay, fair enough.
What I was going to say to you is, in the month of September, we saw it a bunch of times. I mean, nobody brings chaos in an offensive way more than Akil Baddoo.
Yeah.
Akil Baddoo does a few things, man. He runs like a deer. The good Akil Baddoo runs like a deer, walks, can hit the ball out of the ballpark. Okay. it creates havoc on the bases, whether it's on, stealing bases, going from first to home. I mean, he creates havoc out there. There's a lot of chaos that he brings to the game. He'll have no one else even remotely style-wise like him. And I think first, the other thing is now without I think with no shift, shorter distance between bases, learning experience of being terrible for so much of last year, it would not shock me if Akil Baddoo was even 90% of what he was in 2021. He'd be.
He's half of a super dangerous player, and if you have a lefty masher to pair with him, he can sit on the bench against some guys and be thrown into the game at the end all day. Like,
put it this way,
I still want to know how many at bats.
I don't think Scott Harris has really got any idea of what good Akil Baddoo looks like. I don't, he has a lot of skills that nobody else offensively has on that team. And
he still has about 1,800 plate appearances since high school.
I mean, look, he's a very much a lottery ticket kind of player, but there's a lot of interesting good that he can bring to the table.
And he'll have an easier time sticking, when Miggy is gone. To be honest, like that, there is a problem with having Miggy as far as that goes.
Let's
talk about all of our
real quick before we move on. Real quick, the one thing I wanted to ask you guys. You talk about position players and the roles changing. You look at Jonathan Scope's numbers into without the shift. So that's going to leave him as a different type of player. His role could be potentially, and AJ Hinch mentioned it today. Possibly you could see him back at first, or possibly see some time at third. And Hinch was one of the few managers. I saw the Kevin Cash interview on MLB Network, and Kevin Cash is. I did not realize how much of the guy's a cut up. I didn't realize.
He's a character.
Yeah, he's a character.
He's also brilliant and a great.
Yeah, but it was when they were talking to Scott Harris though. Scott, one of the guys, watching the team as did all year, and Harris quickly reminded him, "I only been here since September." And it was funny because Harris was like, "No, look, I have to clean up." Like it was the way he said it was like, "Hey, I have a mess, or I have a lot to do here." So
a lot to do. Yeah. But that's the other thing is that he hasn't seen a player like Baddoo very much. I'm sure there's a lot of things he will see in spring training and in the month of April that he'll just go, I just my inability to watch live a lot of this, it was a disadvantage for me in some ways. So, but yeah, I wanted to ask you guys about Cabrera. So I've said this many times. Look, I'm the elder statesman of the four of us. So I can remember, I saw a lot of K-line in my day. I mean, I saw nearly a decade of it. Or a decade, but I mean, the last 2 or 3 years, he was a shell of himself. But, I still think that it isn't even close that Miguel Cabrera is by far the greatest hitter in my 60 years of watching Tiger baseball. It isn't even a discussion for me about how great of a hitter he is. I feel sad for him that he's had to endure these last 4 or 5 years because it's so far away from the quality of player he was. And what makes me sad about it is, part of this is his own doing, in the sense that I'm sure there were a lot of times they wanted him to sit out and he didn't. Okay. And he probably advanced, a lot of the cartilage issues in his knee, problems with his foot and his ankle. I mean, these are all things he brought upon himself just because he would refuse to sit.
And they also didn't have they never had, the depth to give him breaks either. But keep going.
But I still wonder. At some point in time, like at the All-Star break or something slightly beyond that, if he just finally it's just time to go home, and they give him a big day, and he goes home, and they give him his. Remember, you got to pay him $8 million for 2024 as a buyout if they haven't already given him enough money. But I'll be shocked if he makes the entire season. That's my point. So I mean, he's going to have 250, 300 at bats max. I don't see him as an impediment at DH. He's not going to. Maybe in April and May, but I don't see a lot of at bats.
Yeah, it's not hurt. It's not going to hurt anything because they're not trying that hard anyway. And and I mean, this isn't the way I want it to be. It's certainly not where my emphasis is. Miguel Cabrera could quit tomorrow, and I wouldn't particularly be fazed by it. As much as I love him, and as much as I loved watching him hit, and I would say, easily the best hitter. You can't compare to like Ty Cobb. I don't even bother trying to compare him there. But as far as the live ball era, Miguel Cabrera is the best hitter the Tigers have ever had, and and in his prime, I'm not sure I've seen anybody better other than Barry, even as a left-hander. I mean, it's just incredible how many like loud outs he would make. I remember going to 3 games in a row one series against the White Sox. And I think he struck out once, homered twice, and every other ball was a line drive, that had to be, we didn't know back then, but it had to be 115, 120 miles an hour.
He's just amazing.
It was like if Giancarlo Stanton, was a lot better pure hitter and a lot smarter pure hitter. It was just freaking sick to watch him in his prime. So I never will have too many regrets about having to put up with, bad Miggy now. I mean, it was just outrageous. And I'm sure you're right about him playing through things and, not taking care of himself, obviously, as well. And obviously he had his issues. But, I mean, it's definitely been an absolute treat to watch Miguel Cabrera hit. I think I learned a lot by just by watching Miguel Cabrera hit to see, like, what's possible compared to some other people. Yeah.
And muscle memory thing. And the thing is that hearing him in the dugout talk about there's days he was in pain playing, and the only thing that the comparison of Ty Cobb, I saw that on Twitter. He wasn't as good as Ty Cobb or LK Line. First of all, you never watched Ty Cobb play, so shut up. Like, are we going to ignore the stats?
Yeah, I don't want to hear about Ty Cobb.
I'm going to ignore the stats. I'm not necessarily going to ignore Ty Cobb's stats, but he also didn't play against black people and much more talented people, and was playing with the ball that was a dead ball era.
Wait a second.
It was like it's like comparing Miguel Cabrera to like the best cricket player of all time. It's just not the same game.
Yeah, it's not the same game.
It's not. So whatever.
Doing it. It's not apples to apples comparison.
I retweeted something last week, Raj, where somebody, had a picture of what a glove from like 1920 looked like.
Yeah.
And it was ridiculously
it's like
funny.
Spin. It's like this spin.
It was like as big as your hand and very stuffed. And I said, yeah, they used this glove and threw 82, and there were no black players.
You weren't allowed to
hit 420.
Yeah, you're not supposed to strike people out back then. It was
and not to mention they were
lobbing junk in there.
Yeah, they had the ball they would use, and it would be scuffed up to death. And look, even like here's the thing. When every year I'll go to the Henry Ford, the Greenfield Village, and they have the old timey baseball. And one year I was working radio, and I got to go with Meltdown from the Riff. This is way back in the day, and I was in the promotions team. And so they had Meltdown, and I catch a ball. My hand hurt for 3 weeks. It hurt. I mean, I just caught a simple fly ball, and it was like
it didn't have any panic.
Yeah, and it was like right there, and those guys routinely break their fingers and what have you. So I don't want to hear it. LK Line, yes, he is he is the greatest Tiger of all time. Yes, great player, and he played when the mound was low. I mean, this was before the mound was, in terms of he played in an era where it was impossible to get hits, and in terms of like he played against top pitching. So I can compare. You can have understandable, but
and LK Line obviously, great defender. easily an better all-around player. Right? Yeah, no one can argue that. But Miguel, easily a better hitter. That's just the way it was.
So we've been going on 2 hours now, and we did get another question about we had a Braves fan coming in checking in. Jackson Lord, we got a solid prospect again. Everybody's been praising this move so far, but what is it for Jimenez? A guy who with a high strikeout rate, with a good whiff rate, good fastball spin. Look up his, like as Mark said earlier, go to his Baseball Savant. Yeah. It's all red.
It's all red.
Go look at his game log for the last
active spin, vertical action, extension, power fastball shit coming right at you from a big dude who gets way down the mound in your face. Right. Has a pretty good slider, but doesn't have a long track record of being consistently able to repeat that. So we'll see.
He probably
good luck, guys.
He's probably not closing, but he could. He's more likely a leverage 7th or 8th inning guy, and he was terrific last year. No period, end of story.
Yeah. And I think we like Joe. I mean, I've always had the impression that he works really hard and wants it bad. You know, if that means anything to, I missed their name, but yeah,
undrafted free agent.
Yeah,
you know that's.
I would say if you're asking for comps of what he's like, he's a lot like Montero from Houston or Suarez from San Diego that you watch in the playoffs. He's got some similarities to that. He's not quite as pure velocity, but he has a lot of extension in the swing and miss. You know, he put it this way: Joe ain't trying to trick you. Okay, so
he'll be better than the last reliever they got from the Tigers.
Yeah, speaking of, somebody mentioned too that because Jansen's out with Boston today. Look, Kelsey, look, good luck.
What's the deal with that?
Boston was like, everybody rejected us. So
yeah, Boston hadn't done anything, man. They hate Chaim Bloom right now.
Why are you signing a $16 million closer unless your plan is to trade him?
I don't know, because I just don't look at that roster and see any real.
Well, look, here's what I'll say to you. I have a lot of respect for Chaim Bloom, but I'm a little confused what's going on there right now.
Yeah, they've been like Chris was telling us yesterday. Chris, there was a couple players that they were getting involved in, right? And then they were saying no at the last minute. Or
4 or 5 different times they like somebody signed, and then a report would come out. They're like, "Hey, the Red Sox are in on that too." We're like, "Well, tough break, guys."
Jackson, and just to tell Jackson Lord why was he?
Yeah, they're in a weird spot. You know, it's interesting bringing up.
He's got 1 year.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Lord, he's got one. Jimenez has 1 year left, and that's why they got rid of him.
Oh yeah, and Boston signed the
right
position player, the largest contract for a Japanese position player. So that happened this evening too. So
yeah, which is also just peculiar. I think we're all Chaim Bloom fans and wanted him here and are at least like interested to see what he does over there. But it's been pretty peculiar.
All right. So
as far as Atlanta, it's interesting that they got Joe when all of a sudden they're staring down the barrel of a Philly and Mets just absolute arms race right now.
How great of a job has Dombrowski done there?
I love it. It made it. They may hate it 3 years from now, but I don't know why. Just get after it.
With you. I think they'll still be good 3. Look,
they could be.
There's some things at the fringes that they did that people don't talk about. I mean, you got Marsh to play center field, at least short up their defense.
I like Marsh as a hitter, too. I still think he has a chance. Yep.
They stuck with Baum at third base when they were worried that they might, he was going to struggle, and then he didn't.
Yeah.
They played Stott at short. They got Sosa to also play. They said to Gregorius, Didi, thanks, man. Call us if you find work. Bye.
Yeah.
And Stott will play second now, probably. And they're very, very, look, they signed Wheeler a while ago and who knew Wheeler was this good? All right.
Yeah.
So,
we always liked Wheeler though. Man, there's just this trio of there's this group of pitchers, Nick Pivetta, Zach Wheeler, Garrett Cole, Jamison Tyant, and Tyler Glass now that like 6 years ago, I was like, oh, I'd love to have those guys. And man, they've all worked out, but it took a long time for some of them. Yeah.
But, like I said, though, they've done very well. I mean, that division is a tough division. Atlanta, they're not just waltzing. So I wanted to ask you guys because it's always fun to think about this. You still got 3 shortstops out there. Where do you think they're going?
All right. Let's make this the last question of the evening because it's
You got to get out. I know you need rest.
Yeah. I literally came home, ate, and jumped back on. But no, I actually, I could stay up for a little while. It depends on our audience. If our audience wants to keeps going, we can. But Chris, I'll let you kick this off. Who do you got for free agents left?
Well, I still have a hard time believing that the Dodgers are not going to grab somebody. I know that people think they're just kind of shoring up their money next year to make a run at Ohtani, but are they really going to have Gavin Lux be their starting shortstop and then break in some young guys this year? It's hard for me to believe. And I know the Cubs were talking pretty heavily about going after one of the shortstops.
I think that's Swanson.
Yeah, they've talked about Bogarts too. Yeah, or been linked.
What do the Red Sox do if they lose Bogarts? Who do they have at shortstop?
I hear San Diego's getting a shortstop.
Well, they were all in on Turner, and then
they've got 3.
Yeah.
Stop, San Diego. Just stop.
Not really anymore, because I don't think anybody thinks Tatis is a shortstop anymore.
No,
probably. I don't think he can. I mean, yeah. That's going to be interesting. That whole there's a drama there unfolding behind the scenes that is going to be fascinating to watch. I'll just say Correa Dodgers. I mean, just to start us off. Yeah.
Well, there was somebody in the chat earlier mentioned that Correa. I guess Dodgers are not interested in Correa, but I think that's Bula.
I think he's a perfect fit. I think San Francisco San Francisco's got nothing and a lot of money now, so they're going to get in the mix on something.
Trevor Story.
Yeah, it's true.
I don't think he can play shortstop. I don't think that arm is going to hold up anymore, but I don't know. Maybe that's what they think. Maybe that's what they think.
Story's playing short for the Sox next year. I don't think there's any question about it. So and then Merrill plays short next year.
Good luck.
I think Swanson. You know what? I'm gonna go Swanson to the Cubs. I think Swanson would be a good fit there. Or the Dodgers could come out of nowhere and offer Swanson quite a bit of money, but I don't know. The Cubs are gonna get either Bogarts or Swanson, but I'll go with Swanson. Chris?
Yeah. And I still feel like the Mariners haven't done much in free agency, and they have J.P. Crawford, but he's okay. I don't consider him like a championship caliber shortstop, though. And I mean, they could move him around, I think. So
they're kind of making sounds like they're done increasing the payroll, but I don't know. You never know. You never know with Mr. Dipoto. He can do all kinds of things.
Just got that taste of the playoffs, man. You got to go.
It's a good team.
But I don't know. It'll be fascinating to see how that breaks. It'll just be curious if Carlos Correa ends up like waiting off the market again, and then it's like, oh, here's another short-term deal.
Yeah. Well, and then we pay him $40 million. Tell me this is true.
But let me ask you something: if you're Carlos Correa and you just watch Turner get $300 million, don't you think you're worth $300 million?
Absolutely.
Well, he thought he was worth $350 last year, and he's probably right.
Wrong.
I mean, if we offered him $275, I always just kind of took that as like that was like the best offer you could make that he wouldn't take. That you didn't have to worry about him actually accepting for some.
Listen, he was pretty damn good last year.
Yeah.
So I think he goes. I think Swanson to the Cubs. I think.
There you go.
Joe,
that's an interesting point, Joe.
Correa to the Dodgers.
Swanson's girlfriend plays for the Chicago Red Stars too. Not sure
Bogart,
how much that'll affect his decision. LOL, of course, because who knows? But yeah, that's a funny point.
To the Padres.
Good stuff, Joe.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, Bogart to the Padres, I could see. Yeah.
Because Manny Machado's leaving after next year.
Yeah, he is.
And I think that's a great reason why Bogarts can go to the Padres is because who has more range at third base than Manny Machado? And it allows you to play.
Machado too. I mean, he had struggled with his back issues, and so that's kind of like again.
So is Correa at times.
Yeah. So that's back's always like one of those things that, and Chris has been very adamant about it. My back.
So should we be trying to steal Fernando Tatis Jr. away if they'll eat $100 million of his deal?
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the fan side.
I voted yes on that.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the fan sided article on that idea. Oh, we should trade for Fernando Tatis.
Yeah.
So
as far as the back goes, boys, when you saw me in July and I couldn't walk, I can finally walk now.
Yeah,
that's good.
So,
So
I'm keeping my posture in mind at least.
Yeah,
keep it tight.
Watching Mark try to walk for tacos was painful. I mean, he literally was trying to walk for tacos, and it wasn't
even the motivation of tacos wasn't enough.
It wasn't enough. He had a beer in his hand. And he was just grimacing the whole entire time.
It was so bad.
Yeah,
back problems suck.
Yeah, but so everybody who tuned in this evening, thank you. This was unexpected. This was the most unexpected podcast we've probably ever done. And
enjoy our lawful chaos here.
Yeah, lawful chaos. And now it's actually the longest podcast we've ever done too. So, and we did have Evan Petzold join us, but of course the trade happened, and of course that was the reason why I wasn't on. So
that was it.
Yeah, and I don't
like the fact shout out to Evan Petzold, who's been in frantic mode, no doubt, for the past 2 hours. Yeah.
But there's somebody that kind of went out of his way to, anyway, he's getting some crap about something he tweeted out, and I think it's unfair that he did. So, anyway, whatever. People are what they are on Twitter.
By the way, before we leave, I think all of us, I wanted to make sure I said this, and I'm sure you guys want to say it too. Shout out to Castellini.
Yep. Yeah. We mentioned it last night too. Yeah. It's that we really hope that everything works out. I sent him a message yesterday, and we sent him again. We'll probably do it tomorrow too with when Uper and John join us. They will. Yeah.
We're thinking about you, Chris, and we wish you the best of luck, and we're proud of you.
Yeah, that took some guts, bro. Yeah. Just hang in there. Just keep breathing and keep moving. Doing the right thing, I think. So, wishing you the best.
And I've always go check out all the great content over at WoodwardSports.com. Of course, check out our buddy Brandon over at BlessyBoys.com, as he is the commander, general, the everything over at BlessyBoys.com.
And Capitan.
Yeah. The guy that is cracking the whip over there. And so thanks, Brandon, for coming on. Thanks, Mark, brother Ross, for coming on. And this was again, one of those a show that literally I thought that I honestly thought maybe a half hour tops. I don't think there's nothing going on. And then boom.
No, you could throw out any single topic and we'd go for 2 hours until we were just like, I have to go to the bathroom.
A half hour?
Find sustenance.
We couldn't drive to the game together and get out of the car in a half hour.
This is the truth, yes.
Yeah, but the trade, our initial reactions were like, wait, who, what? And then you can see the evolution on if you watch back the video, the evolution of going, oh shit, this is a really good deal. And,
okay.
Yeah.
This is good. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, but we'll be back tomorrow. I feel bad for you. I really thought this was going to be a different thing, and I felt bad for not having Uper and John on. But I don't like the idea of having. I think a podcast should be no more than 4 tops.
It's tough because I'm pretty chatty.
Full Brady bunch.
Yeah,
exactly. So we'll be back tomorrow. I'm sure the Tigers might do something else tomorrow. Who knows?
Maybe maybe Mr. Petzold or Mr. Stavenhagen can show up tomorrow.
Yes, exactly. We can get those 2 fine gentlemen on the podcast. We can, and of course, go to WoodwardSports.com. Go to the news tab and check out all. I did a piece on Jimenez. There was a Rule 5. Well, I have to do an updated piece for that. And go to our store, get some Woodward Tiger gear for somebody in your family if you like, or go to the Seawolf store and get a flag if you want to. Either or. But shout out to Greg Gang who gave me that flag.
Oh yeah. So
representing my bookshelf, it crashed, and right now all are left are my old school Transformers. So until it looks better, I don't know. I'm really worried about the aesthetic over back there.
Folks, give these guys your money, or they'll end up like the SB Nation with these broke ass corporate masters.
You said it, I didn't say it, but at any rate, thanks
come at me, SB Nation.
Yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, same bat time, same bat channel. For myself, Chris, Brandon, and Mark, we'll see you next time. Have a good night, everybody.
Love you guys. Night.